Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic podcast, sponsored by Reps Virtual Reality, Next Pick, First Down Playbook, Rack Coach, Tip of the Spear, the Top Hopper, Sports Workbook, Sideline Design. You are the best. I love Sideline Design. Y'all actually make me look like I'm smart with y'all's graphics program. And Sideline Sports Network, thank you for streaming us. I got the head coach from Cardinal Gibbons, Fort Lauderdale. I love Fort Lauderdale because I coached at Virginia Union. I coached with some guys from Fort Lauderdale, Toriano Morgan, Mark James, Mike Spencer. And we got Coach Matt DuBuc is on today. He played at Cardinal Gibbons, correct, Coach? Then you went to Texas Tech and played in the CFL and won three state championships there. So, Coach, for the people that don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself, Coach, and where you're from.
Thanks for having me on. Obviously, Troy, football, I haven't missed a football season since I was probably 11 years old, either coaching or playing. So, yeah, I know what your nickname is 365 or 360.
Yeah,
mine isn't. Mine's not far from that when it comes to this game of football. But, yeah, I played at Cardinal Gibbons, and I got a scholarship. I played at Texas Tech in the 90s for a coach named Spike Dykes. And that really changed my life, that opportunity. I don't know in today's football, 5'8" slot receiver, you get the same look that I got in the 90s. But I was kind of the Wes Welker before Wes Welker, over at Texas Tech. So I did that for 5 years. I got drafted. I played in Canada for 4. Won a Grey Cup with Doug Flutie in '97. Nice. Andre Ware, Doug Flutie were our two quarterbacks. So John Jenkins, actually, if you all know that name, Houston Cougars, was an OC up in Canada for a long time. Talked to him last night, John Jenkins. I still watch a lot of CFL football. And coached, tore up my big toe and got released my 4th year and got a job at West Texas A&M for 2, where I coached the receivers, and then we got fired. And unfortunately, in this business, that's part of the deal. So we got fired, and I came back to Florida. I was getting married, and I got an offer at my alma mater, and as they say, the rest has been history. Going into year 21 next year, and 8th as the head coach. So it's been a great journey. I can't complain. I've coached one of my sons. Now he's the long snapper at South Florida, University of South Florida. He was one of the only 2 scholarship snappers in the country in December. And my other son's going to be a junior, and he's a slot receiver. So it's been quite a journey. And as a 5'8" guy, I have a 6'2.5" and a 6 foot. So I'm the low man on the totem pole at my house, as they say, but I still carry the biggest stick.
Yeah, no doubt, Coach. So you played at Cardinal Gibbons, and when you were coming up, y'all played St. Thomas, and I know Aquinas was a power then, and they still are there in South Florida. What was that like? Were they y'all's rival?
Yeah, they were. My sophomore year, we actually beat St. Thomas.
Wow.
At their place. I think it gave George Smith his only losing record of his career, and he's
George Smith had a losing record.
He was either 5-5 or 4-6.
Man,
that was probably in 1990. And then we beat them, and then I guess in 2021 we beat them at their place again, and I was the head coach. So. I've almost got my bucket list complete, and that was obviously on my bucket list as a head coach to beat St. Thomas Aquinas, and to beat them at their place was even better. But they got a great program, and what George started there and made, it's still been continued with,
Was that the spring of 2021 y'all beat them?
We beat them in the fall of 21.
Because I'm trying to remember, because Mike was staying with me, Mike Spencer, that played at Aquinas, and he was talking to somebody in one of the schools down there. Finally beat him, and I don't know if it was y'all.
Probably us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was just so. I mean, I don't want to say Mike was happy that Aquinas lost, but he was just happy for his friend and how big of an accomplishment that was.
Yeah, Jack Hannerham, which is our defensive coordinator, was at Aquinas for like 20 years and was Mike's mentor. So I think he was probably really happy for Jack, and Jack does a great job for us on defense. So yeah, so it's been a great journey. It's been it's been fun. I've got to meet a lot of really good guys in the business and meet some guys that are not so good, but we run the air raid offense, and I got to know Mike Leach really well when I was coaching at West Texas A&M. I used to go see Sonny Dykes there, and I got to meet Mike Leach. And then when Leach was out of football, I would go down to Key West and hang out with him.
Wow.
And he had recruited one of my quarterbacks at Washington State, so we got even closer. And yeah, it was a shame what happened to him. But yeah, I wouldn't say, were we friends? Yeah, we were colleague friends. We never had Christmas dinner together, but we talked a lot on the phone. We talked about the offense, and he was always really open on sharing with me, which was pretty cool. So that was, I'm really good friends with Adam Gase, and Adam Gase never met him. And Gase said that was one of the guys that he wished he would have met in football. So
is Gase down there? Is he down there?
Yeah, Gase is my offensive analyst.
Wow.
He helps me out a couple days a week. And he's learned the air raid, and I've learned a little bit about what he did, with Denver and Peyton Manning. He's got a lot of really great stories with those guys.
Yeah, so, man, Coach, I got to get him on here, man, for an hour, man. That'd be killer, man.
I'd love to tell you could get him on, but when I tell you he is a recluse when it comes to social media or anything like that. I'll bring it up to him. I don't make any promises when it comes to him. He just kind of, when he got done in New York, he kind of walked away for a long time, and I've been lucky to get him. I get him a couple times a month to come over, and he likes my younger son. He kind of works with him a little bit with film study, and he says I'm too tough on him, but he's a great guy. So I'm very fortunate. I got a lot of really cool people that are just a phone call away or really close by that I can knock a lot of stuff off their head.
I want to ask you about Coach Leach, and I want to ask you about Coach Gase. Like, how Coach Gase sees the game from being, a pro football coach. What is different about it, or coming from a high school coach's perspective, or maybe something you've learned or something that you're like, just is different, or is it the same, Coach?
I would tell you that he would tell you it's the same. However, the difference between a pro coach is you do football all day long. The difference between a high school coach, you got to get in before the school day starts, and you got to stay after the school day's over. Where those guys are doing football, cut-ups, to me, sometimes it's overkill, but, he always will make a reference. When he'll call me during the day, he's like, I can't believe you have to teach. I say, well, that's where I kind of make more of my money down here in South Florida.
That's a good point he made. That's a good point.
So I would say, it's very similar. You're still dealing with attitudes. You're still trying to find ways to motivate people daily. You're still trying to find ways to organize your staff and figure out which guy, has to be pet and the other guy that's got to be whipped. And I think it's more of a people business. I think Gase was around Nick Saban for 6 years and learned a lot of, just stay in your lane, do your job. And don't look for the next job. The next job will find you. And it's kind of what I've learned from Gase over the last 2 years, and he's kind of been my red zone guy. I could sit here and try to change the offense to the, what they were doing with Peyton Manning, but ours is simple, stupid for a lot of ways, where I think the NFL deal is just so much verbiage and language that I think it becomes bogged down, for high school kids where you don't have the same meeting time. It doesn't work.
Yeah, Coach. Mike Leach, like, I did not know him, but I was always a fan of him. I thought he was so funny. I loved his sense of humor. I loved how quirky he was. And one of my former players, John Graves, was an assistant strength coach for him at Washington State, and he was on the staff at Mississippi State last year. But it really bothered me when he passed away. And it bothered a lot of people that didn't even know him, but just how important he was to coaches. And I mean, one of the most loved coaches of all time. I mean, you knew him, Coach, but he was different.
What I would say about him, one night I drive down to Key West. I get there at 8 o'clock, meet him at the most southern point. We go to dinner, and he wouldn't talk football at all. And he was out of football at that time. So you talk about, everything from Martians to spaceships to Geronimo.
Man.
And then finally I get him on the street about 2 a.m. I said, Coach, what do you like in the red zone? He said slants and fades, and he changed the So, he was more of a, before he would give you a lot of information or share, he wanted to get to know you first. And, and I think that was kind of his prerequisite, because he was so popular. Everybody was always calling him, and you couldn't get him unless you got on the phone after 12 o'clock at night. Forget it during the day. I mean, he's a night owl. So you could never, if you had a question about, 618, guess what? You better wait till 12 o'clock tonight, because you weren't going to get an answer. But the cool thing with Mike Leach was his tree extended pretty far. So a lot of guys that I met and still talk to today either played for Mike, or GA'd for Mike, or was a student assistant for Mike. And, that offense that we all run is very religious when it comes to, when you read the Bible, you're reading those passages and you believe in those passages, and you either believe in
like
throwing it or you don't.
He's like the Pope. I hate to say that, but I mean, he was the leader, man.
He was, and I was watching the XFL, and I was watching Hal Mummy, and I know Hal, and Hal Mummy would run mesh 42 times in a game if he could, but Mike was, I've been in meetings with Mike at spring ball. Meetings never start on time. If you didn't want to get through the film, you just had to change the subject. And he would, anybody that played for him that was a quarterback, they don't know how blessed they are, and they'll figure it out one day.
Why? Why is it such a blessing to have played for him?
Because it was always more about than just football. It was about your personal, your girlfriend, your family, who oh, I know that guy. And sometimes you wouldn't get to football. It'd take 30 minutes. And I had a quarterback named Peyton Bender that played out there, played in the Apple Cup. And Peyton, he'd call me and say, Coach, we're sitting in here 45 minutes. We still haven't turned the film on. And, for some college guys, that's cool. But when you got a test the next day and you got to study or whatever, that can also get a little hairy for you at times. But, I think anybody that played for him, learned the simplicity of, and I love when Leach would say, all these guys have all these names for all these coverages and all these complicated. Football's football. The guys that are overcomplicating the game aren't the guys that are going to win. And I live that. I live that theory as a coach today.
How? Because of how simple your system is? Because you mentioned that it was simple.
Well, I wouldn't say it's simple, but it's so repetition driven that when you rep so much every day, it's like driving a car. You got to put the key on or hit the button. You got to put your foot on the brake. You got to look both ways before you back up. That's what our offense is based on. It's just based on building blocks, and that's when you get a huge turnover in players and coaches. That's when it becomes a challenge. But if you can keep continuity within your program, you're gonna be able to throw the football in this offense, because his top quarterbacks at Texas Tech were all 1 year, 5th year guys. Every year the 5th year guy would break the guy that was in there before him until Graham Harrell, where Graham Harrell was a 4-year starter. But prior or post Graham Harrell, it was all 1 year, 5th year players. So, I think that's why the system is so strong. And you got to buy into it. Like, bottom line is this: if your coaches aren't bought in, you're not going to have the success you should have. And that's something that I tell anybody I hire or whatever. I said, we're going to throw the ball first. Now we'll run the ball. And I listening to Bobby Bentley, when we want to impose our will, we'll run the football, but we don't have to have 72, exotic runs. You got to have your principal run plays that go along with your principal pass plays. And like Leach would say, everybody talks about balance in offense. Balance in offense is when everybody's touching the ball. Not one guy is touching it 25 times, but you say you have balance because you threw it 25 times and you ran it 25 times. Because that 25 that you ran, most probably one guy is touching the ball, or two backs, one of the two. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's not balance. I'm going to get up here because it's too hot outside. We're in South Florida.
That's okay, Coach.
It's ridiculous right now how hot it is out there. But that's to me what balance is, and I live by that. We played 7-on-7 yesterday. We played 7 games. I would say 8 or 9 guys touched the football yesterday. So that's what I find to be the most important part about this air raid offense. It's not just 50% of one guy touching it. Now we say we ran the ball. No, it's keeping everybody involved. And I think last year our balance, we had 5 guys with 25 plus catches, then the highest with 32. I mean, it's, there's a lot of it is screens and a lot of it is quick game, but we'll throw 6-4 verts down the field like Bobby was talking about. I run it the same way Bobby does. I mean, Bobby and Trickett and myself, we talk football. My son was recruited by South Florida last year, so I knew Trickett very well. And then, as you go on the unofficial visits and the visits, and they come down, you're always talking football, and the air raid or the offense always comes up.
Yeah. So, you followed me on Twitter, and I hit you up, Coach, because, I saw Cardinal Gibbons. I was like, wow, man, that's a big name in South Florida. I mean, how did you find out about the clinic in the podcast, Coach, the CFC Clinic podcast?
I was kind of scrolling through this morning because our social media lady was posting some things from yesterday 7-on-7, and I saw it come up, and it had Bobby Bentley, and I was a fan of Bobby. Unfortunately, Bobby not there anymore, but my son, the long snapper, was going to kind of be his student assistant in offense. And, he said, you got so much extra time on your hands, Trey, you can help draw up the cards, and if you want to get into coaching one day. So Bobby and I had a really good relationship, and I knew what he did in South Carolina as a head football coach in the program that he ran. And I know he has like a quarterback school, or he has receiver school that he's doing now. But, when I saw that, I listened to the first 30 minutes of it, and I said, this is great. So I followed you right back, and it's kind of the way this deal works, right?
Yeah, Coach. I mean, I only met Coach Bentley one time before that podcast, and that's when he came to LC Burr, who was coaching South Carolina one of my assistants had worked at ODU when Schuler was there. And man, I love the guy. Why? Because he's a football coach. Why? Because he's from South Carolina, just like you, Coach. I mean, you're a football coach and you're from South Florida. And I mean, South Carolina and Georgia and South Florida. I'm from Virginia, but I got the utmost respect for, the football that's played in those areas. Um, Coach, I want to ask you about Coach Dykes. His son just played for the national championship. What was so great about him?
Well, Sonny wasn't even in football when I was at Texas Tech. He was a walk on in baseball. So he was really, you in football, you typically see the sons in the office a lot. And he was not one that you ever saw. Now, I played for his brother, Rick, was the one that actually recruited me. And I still talk to Rick occasionally. But Rick left Texas Tech and then ended up going to Arizona and then got out of football and became a millionaire in the car business. And Rick was really, really smart. And Sonny, I've known Sonny just through him recruiting our guys through the years and obviously the connection we had at Texas Tech and with Spike Dykes, his dad, and Sonny has done phenomenal. I mean, golly, he has done phenomenal. So he's a Texas guy. We used to talk a lot when he was at Cal, and he just didn't fit that persona. And some guys fit and some guys don't. And then he kind of resurrected SMU. He's a Dallas. He's a West Texas kid, but Dallas and then obviously at TCU now in Fort Worth, and he's done great. So I hope he keeps it up.
What was it like to play with Doug Flutie, Coach? I'm kind of being a fan because I always like Doug Flutie. I mean, he's like the classic underdog. I mean, like not as tall as you like, but just a winner and a heck of an arm. So what did you learn from him, Coach? I mean, what is he like to be, have as your quarterback?
So I was a rookie in '97. And like I said, if anybody's watching that knows who John Jenkins is, John Jenkins was the head coach at Houston with Andre Ware. And Doug Flutie was probably at that point in Toronto. He had played in Calgary and won all these. I don't know if he ever won the Grey Cup in Calgary, but he's the highest paid player in the league. But the thing I learned from Doug Flutie was whether you were playing ping pong, blackjack, softball, hockey, football, he was always going to try to win, no matter what you were doing. And he wasn't a big gambler. And I was a rookie and we're in a casino one night and he kind of steps over my shoulder and tells me to take a hit on that. And I said, this is my money, not yours. You've got plenty of it. Go spend your own. And, no matter what he was doing, he was always he's a winner. He plays the guitar. He's in a band. I mean, he's in great shape still. I mean, the guy is, I would just say competitor, probably the most competitive guy that I've ever been around. 5'9", but intelligent, smart, and win at all costs. And that's why he was so successful in the NFL and in college. And, I think if he was playing in today's football, he'd probably make, $100 million contract because of the way the game's changed with the smaller quarterbacks. I mean, the Murray guy's a good player and he's really athletic, but Doug Flutie wasn't that far off athletic wise, but could put the ball anywhere you wanted to put it, and smart. So that's what I would tell you about Doug Flutie. I mean, super competitive guy, super competitive.
I don't know much about the Cardinal Gibbons program, but I know y'all win. So, like, from an outsider, like, what do y'all hang y'all's hat on? Not football wise. I know you've already said the air raid, but like, what y'all hang y'all's hat on? What is your key, core principles of y'all's program?
Be a team, be the most excited to play, be the best at doing your job. I mean, that's really that simple. And that's a Mike Leach thing. I don't have a ton of rules, the core values of life, common sense, those type of things. But, the world is a changing place, and kids aren't being raised the same way they were just 10 years ago. And this transfer portal business, and kids are transferring from high school to high school, and, they're playing adults against adults. And that's the sad part of where we're headed with this whole thing, and the college transfer portal. It's really difficult to decipher who's in and who's out, loyalty. That deal. I don't even know how you explain that one anymore. But I try to beat it into the head. Just this is our team. This is the 2023 team, and I played college pro football, and high school football to me was still the best time of my life as a player. So I try to instill that into these guys, and making lifelong friends, which I did. Still, from those teams that I played on, still talk to, and I'm starting to coach some of their sons, and have. And but I think it's just the world of football is changing, and I mean, you either adapt or you get out. And I'm still too young to get out, so I have to adapt and make sure that we're going to do everything we can to stay on the upper echelon of the teams in the country, and we have. And we have a quarterback committed to North Carolina.
Nice.
We have a tight end committed to Georgia, and we have a multiple of guys that are getting recruited by Division I schools still. So I think iron sharpens iron a lot of the time, and I lose some kids here and there. I get some kids, but typically the kids we lose for some reason it didn't work out. And younger players now, I try to develop a program. Now everybody tells them that they can play. You need to get film as a ninth grader. I said, well, you can be exposed or get exposure. You pick. And if you're a 14-year-old playing against a 19-year-old, you're going to get exposed. And I don't know if that's the kind of film you want to have, but they don't typically. Some people just know better than you. And I've been doing this a long time. And there are building blocks like our offense, where there's got to be building blocks on how you go from a 14 to a 15 to a 16 to a 17 or 18-year-old kid, and how your body changes, and how your flexibility changes, and your mindset changes for the better. And I've only probably coached 2 or 3 kids that were ninth graders that played on the varsity, and all 3 of them are going to be in our Hall of Fame because that's how good they were. But that's kind of the way I look at it, and there's a lot of people out there telling me I'm wrong. So I could do it my way, you do it your way. I tell everybody the proof is in the pudding. We've won 3 state championships, 74 games in 7 years, and we're going to continue to win. And it's getting harder and harder, obviously, to win state championships because these kids are just transferring all over the place, or they're not even going to the school that they're playing at. They're homeschooled, or they're virtual in another school, and I just that's where the politicians got involved, unfortunately. And I'm friends with Marco Rubio, and his son's going to Florida as a preferred walk-on receiver, and I've kind of got to know him a little bit over the last few years, and we have those candid conversations about how politicians have definitely got in the way of creating. Remember when you played in your school? It was a neighborhood school, probably.
Yes, sir.
And
I'm in the same neighborhood, man. I'm right Route 10, man. I'm in the suburbs of Richmond, Virginia, Chesterfield.
And you had those kids that went to your school. Well, you could live across the street from a school today, and you could drive 10 miles the other way to go to a different school that's got a better coach. And I don't know if I like that. And when you used to transfer, you have to sit out a year. When I played, now you don't sit out anything. And the reason why we get so heavily recruited is because we typically keep our kids that we have. And some of these coaches that are from colleges, they go to Dade County and the roster is like an NFL roster. It's just this kid he's not here anymore. He's now at this place, or he's at that place, or he went to that place, and now he's at this place. Yeah. If I'm a college coach, I'm like, you gotta have a hound dog, with you when you come down here to sniff out where everybody's at.
I mean, are y'all the originators of it? I mean, is South Florida where it started?
I would say so. And I think, where it really started was at youth football.
Yes.
These kids, they jump from park to park year to year. Some kids might play at 4 different parks in 5 years. And then they get to high school and they think that's the way it's supposed to be. That's normal. And it's not.
Yeah.
And if you transfer 3 times, then you get red flagged by the NCAA. Nobody tells them that. Nobody tells those kids that.
How many times?
3. If you have 3 transfers, you get red flagged by the NCAA. And I'm not saying they do a good job, because they're part of the problem too. But with no test scores now,
yeah,
the accountability is weak.
Yeah,
and I don't like it.
We have some coaches up here, and I've talked to 180 college, NFL, and high school coaches since January. And I listened to another podcast, and there was this group of high school coaches who basically say they don't recruit, but people are always coming to their school. And one of the coaches said this statement. I've never heard a coach say this, that there isn't one kid that would rather win a state championship than to get a Division I scholarship. And that's why we're here, to make sure these kids get Division I scholarships. So I guess that's an excuse for them never winning. But have you ever heard a coach say that? Like, it's really not up to the kid whether they get a Division I scholarship. A lot of times it's the size, or, what's your feelings on that, Coach? Have you ever heard of that, or is that just a snake oil salesman mentality?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the number one thing is, when you play on a football team, you're supposed to learn how to be a teammate.
Ooh.
And you're supposed to learn how to get along with others. Because
and this is the head coach at Cardinal Gibbons saying this.
When in football, you have to have 11 people doing the same thing in unison to have success. When one guy breaks down, typically, especially on offense, you're in trouble. So what am I going to do now? I'm just going to run away where it's easier. I'm going to go to that place because there's better players there, and there's more college coaches that come through. There is some truth to that. Some of these schools are not funded properly. They don't care about football, and they don't hire qualified people. Like, I'm lucky. I've got a very good coaching staff. So when I tell you, I've got a guy named Andre Carter, played in the NFL for 13 years. He played 13 years in the NFL, coached at LSU, coached with Gase at Miami and New York. He's our D-line coach. He's retired now, but he's a young guy that's got a lot of energy, and he's a great coach. And I lost a kid, transferred on me, because I honestly think that Andre is very demanding, and I don't know if the kid wanted to deal with it. So, then go. I mean, the one thing you're going to get at our place, you're going to get coached hard. You're going to have to go to class and take care of your business there, and you're going to be a respectful, polite, mannerly kid. Or we're going to do everything we can to help you there. I mean, it also has to come from your house, from whoever's taking care of you. And I'm far from perfect. We've made plenty of mistakes. Some things sometimes get by, but I'll tell you this: it's not for a lack of effort. And I do think there are a lot better programs out there, and I do think there's some kids that think they're better than they are, and that they think that they belong there, and they don't, and they should play at the regular school so they can play, because their football career is not going to be Division I. It could be Division III, NAIA, whatever. but they're not Division I players. And you said it earlier, the measurables matter, probably too much. But, that's just the way it goes. So, yeah, I don't like the direction we're headed. I can tell you that. And I don't know if I would get into this if I was a younger person getting into the field of teaching and coaching, because, with technology has come a lack of accountability when it comes to just listening.
Huh.
And so many of these people want to talk and talk and talk. And still the loudest guy typically is the guy that's wrong, because that's the way he can come off, as he thinks he's powerful. But most of the guys that are screamers don't know what they're teaching or don't know what they're talking about. And that's my opinion. Obviously, I'm not saying that for everybody, but like I said, I've been doing this a while, so I've seen pretty much all of it.
Do y'all have, like, I had a player who he's going into his senior year and he got text messaged by a college coach and they wanted him to come to camp. So he went to camp and his mom took him, and his mom went to the bathroom, and the mom comes back and the kid's on the ground hurt. And there's not a coach, there's not a trainer or anything, but they go and check his knee the next day, and his knee's blown. Like, he blew everything. And do y'all have college coaches that tell kids to come to camp? Hey, coach, we need to get this kid to camp. We need to get him to camp.
100%.
And I mean, like, basically the movement I wanted in Virginia was, don't ask our kids to come to camp unless you have a genuine interest in offering that kid. Now, if a kid chooses to go to the University of Florida camp and pay, and no one invited him, then that's on them. But don't get them to come to camp just to get their $60. So is that going on in Florida, Coach?
Every college coach that comes in drops his pamphlet off and says, here are camp dates. So they're here's the other thing. And if, as the head coach, you don't share that camp pamphlet, and that kid thinks he can play at Penn State, but he can't, but I didn't share that information with him, then that's my fault. And they hold you accountable for that. So we have a coach that takes our guys on a college tour. He's finishing up the second round. We lost the defensive lineman, got hurt on the tour for the year. Good player. It's going to be very, very tough to overcome him. But
yeah, my kid would have been a 3-year starter. I mean,
yeah, this kid was going to be a senior, and
mm-hmm.
he's out. But again, people will say, "Who are you to say that my kid can't play at Florida?" And,
yeah, well, that's on them, but that's on them if they want to go to Florida and go. But, like, don't tell the kid, hey, we need to see you at camp, just because I guess you can't say, hey, we like somebody else better, or, you're not.
Here's the truth. Here's the truth to all this. The guy that comes to your school, let's say he coaches the DBs.
Okay.
So he's going to look at your prospect sheet, and he's going to get his eyes on the DBs first. And then he's going to say, who else do you got? So you're going to say, I got this running back, I got a quarterback, I got this guy, I got that guy. Okay. So what he's going to do then is he's going to highlight those guys, and he's going to send that back to an evaluator. Whoever's going to evaluate, could be an analyst, could be somebody in the recruiting office. Then that kid has got to get pushed through to get to a position coach. Then the position coach has got to like him. Then the position coach has got to then talk to the coordinator. And then all these guys on offense are going to sit in the room and with the head coach, and they're saying, okay, do we like this kid? He's from Florida, or do we like this kid from Georgia? Or we can get the same kid in our own backyard. But the true issue is every kid, then sees somebody got offered, and all of a sudden you're not doing your job because you did it the right way. That, like, I don't do the fake offer thing. I tell college coaches all the time, we're not here to publicize your program. So you can get 55,000 hits.
Yeah.
You know,
I never thought of it that way.
Well, that's what it is. It's advertising. They're advertising their school, or he's advertising his own brand as the recruiting coach. So they'll offer 300 kids for 2 spots on offense. Does that make sense?
No.
So where is the common sense in that thing? Well, I don't have any offers, coach. Well, then they say, okay, we like him. The coach needs to see him in person. Okay, so then you got to go to the camp. I just had a kid go to a camp, and a day before they got a commitment from a receiver. The kid still spent $400 hotel to go up to New York, and didn't even tell me.
Wow.
And this guy, you know, he's a friend of a friend, and I'm like, I'm not sending you any players. I mean, you're a joke, you know, but he's going to say, well, it's not me. I coach the D line. He's a receiver. And I understand that too. But, you know, they say in life timing is everything. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I don't know if kids should, you know, when they get these offers that are legit, they should commit sooner than later because of the spots go fast now. That's why our quarterback committed in North Carolina so fast, because they wanted him. What's going to be better than North Carolina? I said,
I don't know. I went, coach. I drove to Chapel Hill, and I walked in that indoor facility, and I said, where do I sign?
Yeah.
Then coach, I walked in the Jordan room. Every pair of Jordans ever made. These are the ones they got this year. There's 10 of them. The kids are telling me those are worth 500. Those are worth 1,000. Those are worth 800. I'm like, where else is there? It's the Jumpman school. I mean, heck. Drake May, wow, that guy's a heck of a player. They got Clyde Christensen, Coach Tom Brady,
yep,
and Peyton Manning on just walking around. So I mean, yeah, exactly, Coach. Like, why drive all around the world? I mean, if you're good enough, I mean, get a good education and play football. North Carolina Chapel Hill is a heck of a school, and quarterbacks, it's got to be. I mean, that's got to be, you know, it's tough because you don't see a lot of quarterbacks get offered because, I mean, they got to be the man. So, I mean, is it different for quarterbacks, coach, than other positions?
I think it all depends on who the shot caller is at the quarterback, whether it's the offensive coordinator and typically that's also the quarterback coach, but not always, or if it's a head coach that had a lot of, or was a coordinator before. Like I know Lincoln Riley, he's the guy that recruits the quarterback, him and him alone.
Yeah.
Chip Lindsey at North Carolina, I've known him for 10 years, and Chip was looking at our other quarterback last year, and Chip was at UCF, and they signed our quarterback from last year, and then Chip goes to North Carolina. Next thing you know, Chip's calling me. He goes, hey, what's going on with your other quarterback? He's pretty good in practice. I was like, yeah, he's good. So he came down, watched them, and, you know, it goes quick, you know, and next thing you know, kid goes unofficially, meets Mac Brown. Mac Brown does what he does, and the kid commits, and he is a 1-game starter. Last year, started 1 game for us, played in about 8 games, but
what grade?
He'll be a senior. He's pretty good, 6'2", 205, lightning arm. But he's got one game. So people always tell me, oh, you know, you got to get a lot of film. You got to do this. Listen, you got to be at the right place, and it's got to be the right time, and you got to get the right set of eyes on you. Now I'm biased. Obviously, our program has been pretty strong, and like I said, iron sharpens iron. And if you want to compete and you want to have opportunity and you want to get better and you want to be coached, then I think we have a lot to offer. I don't want to get in trouble for recruiting here, so
coach. I can't promise you're not going to get in trouble because I get into a lot of trouble. I mean, people call me and just try to instigate me. Like, do y'all play by the NFHS rules in Florida? Like, coach called me and tried to instigate me, about this deal about a defenseless receiver. And if you don't wrap up, I told the dude, it sounds like to me the days of Ronnie Lott and Jack Tatum, just, putting your helmet and shoulder pad into a dude and not wrapping them up and just like decleating the guy like Alvin Walton for the Washington Redskins. Like those days are over with. And I told the dude, the days of blocking and tackling are almost over with. Like if the receiver lays on the ground long enough, they're going to throw a flag because the guys got hit too hard. You know about this new rule, Coach? And
Yep.
what do you think about this? When in doubt, throw the flag. Basically, it's just they're covering their rear ends for safety. But they can't kick the kid out, can they? Like college football. That's the worst rule ever. Just kick a guy out of the game.
You can be ejected.
You can be,
but typically it's on the second foul.
That makes sense.
It's on the second foul. But here, like I host our Broward County Athletic Association referees at our school. They come in, they meet once a week. They do field work at our place. We have the room for them, and I'm friends with the head guy. And, I think these guys all have jobs. They all might have been at a local high school here, a local high school there, or listen, they're human beings. They're going to make a lot more mistakes than not. And you just have to understand that's what you're dealing with. And, a couple of years ago, we got voted as the nicest, I don't even know what it was called.
Yeah, sportsmanship award. Well, I ain't never gotten that.
I said, oh, great. Well, we got a sportsmanship award. Oh, I'm so happy. But, with that being said, I try to treat the referees with class and I'll give a tip to your listeners. When I get the referee card, I memorize all their names.
Wow.
So that I can, say, hey, Troy, you missed that call. Hey, Troy, and he'll look over at the white hat will look at you. If you just say, hey, white hat, or hey, ref, they won't even look at you. So I typically try to learn the side judge, whoever's on with me, and then the white hat prior to the game. So, when you say hello, it's more of a personalized relationship that you have with them. Now it hasn't always worked. Now we were playing in I think it was 17. We were playing American Heritage in triple overtime, and we go to the first overtime where they tell you the rules of overtime. And I said to the white hat, I said, well, we shouldn't even be in overtime right now. You blew those two calls. The game should be over. He says, you want to start on the 15 or the 25? And I walked away. I said, 15. So, you know what guys you can push a little more than others. And that's just being a judge of, being able to judge people. And I know some students when they walk in, if they're having a bad day, you don't need to push their buttons. You just leave them alone. And it's the same thing with referees. You can tell, pre-game or during the first few calls, what kind of night it's going to be. And you then got to decide, are you going to be a rager or are you going to just try to get through it? And depends on my attitude, I guess, sometimes too. Sometimes I'm not as kind and nice as I should be, but we're all competitive, one win, and that's what happens.
Yeah, I'm the most penalized coach of all time on any level. That's from Gene Steratore, Coach. He made a video about it. He said that I hold the record for the most penalties. Coach, I got a 60-yard penalty before.
Well, I can say I don't want that, and
you might not want to be hanging out with me, Coach.
I don't want to get fined, and I don't want to, my boss is my former head coach. So, and he's a rules guy. So, you want to make sure the athletic director is also in your corner if you do get written up, and that's a big part of it, or at least for me it is.
Coach, being from South Florida, and people in Virginia, we have pride in the 757, and Michael Vick and Bruce Smith and Lawrence Taylor. But like, what is that pride that y'all have in South Florida? Like, Fort Lauderdale is a special place, and I coached with those guys at Virginia Union. What is so special about Broward County football? Why is it different?
I just think that, I mean, the youth football has already started. They're having scrimmages. I mean, it's just a hotbed. I think Broward County and Dade County has more Division I football players every year than anywhere in the country. I just think it's what people do here. Lacrosse isn't that popular, and soccer is still not that popular compared to football. Baseball, has become more of a travel ball thing. Basketball seems to have lost a little stroke, and then track and field is kind of stronger. And, track kind of goes along with football. Not too many kids wrestle and play football anymore, so wrestling isn't as big time as it used to be, probably 10 years ago. So I think, with 7-on-7 and the camps and the kids getting recruited, I just think there's more people doing it here than probably anywhere. And there's a lot of talented kids, and we're very fortunate to coach them. But with that, there's not a lot of multiple sport athletes anymore. I played baseball and football. Not many kids are doing that anymore.
What advice would you give to the young coaches that watch these clinics and these podcasts? What would you give them, Coach, about learning and moving up, or their career?
Well, I was an assistant for 14 years. We're 16 if you count the 2 at West Texas A&M. So I didn't become a head coach for 14 years. I was a running back coach. I was a receiver coach. I was a quarterback coach. I was a quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, assistant head coach, and then I became the head coach, and all at the same place. And I had opportunities to leave, but I graduated from the school. My wife did. Her mom, and we have a heavy tradition at Cardinal Gibbons, and I just think today nobody wants to wait, nobody wants to learn, nobody wants to put the time in. They, like I said, they think the loudest voice is power and knowledge, and it's not. I think there's a lot of guys that skip a lot of steps, and running a program is a program. Now, if you want to be the head coach, you have to raise money, you have to do all the scheduling. You have to do and deal with administration and the principal or whoever the shot caller is, the athletic director. You have to have a budget, and you have to set your budget, and you have to be able to, what can I spend? What can I spend? The biggest issue we're having now is the price of helmets. I mean, a helmet's $400 now. To get a reconditioned helmet, it's $85. That used to be $250 and $35. If you have 100 kids in the program, that's a significant jump. Football is becoming very expensive, and there's more people playing it. So, they all blame it on COVID and so on and so forth. But I don't think those are the things that people even think about. They just think, oh, it looks cool on Friday night or it looks cool on Saturday. And, I want to be that guy. And the amount of work that goes into it. I haven't had a day off all week. I'm talking to you today is I don't consider this work, but my wife might.
Yeah, Coach. That's a. How about we'll end with this question for all the guys who might have wives or girlfriends that are coaches. I've been to Divorce City, Coach. I know how to write the map. All right. What advice can you give those guys, Coach? And then we'll end so you keep your wife happy.
Well, I've been married 20 years, and I wouldn't say my wife is a football fan. I think she tolerates it. She probably would tell you that she feels like she's been in second place to football. But
man, I need to start having some wives on the podcast, Coach. Yeah.
But she understands who I am and who I was before we got together, and you know, I think at times, you know, you've got to figure out. My old principal, you know, we weren't close until maybe the last 2 years, or maybe 2 years before he retired a few years ago, and he said, "Turn your phone off at 8 o'clock. Don't answer the phone anymore." I can't do it. You know, I hate putting things off until the next day. So, you know, around 10 o'clock is when I'll stop. But, you know, I've, you know, I've been very fortunate. My wife kind of gets it, and she knows that to be on top, you got to sacrifice some things. And I've missed birthdays and vacations and things like that. But I don't play golf really. I don't fish. I don't hunt. I don't do any. I like to piddle around the house, but football is what I do. It's my hobby. It's what I have fun doing. I enjoy talking offense. I enjoy, you know, listening to great coaches like Bobby and, you know, Mike Leach or Lincoln Riley, or guys that you can identify with, or guys that you simply respect. Because there's a lot of guys in the business, as they come through your school, you say, well, how did this guy get that job? Like, what is he doing here? Like, he doesn't know Broward County from Dade County, and the head coach sent him down here. Like,
Wow.
I've gone out with guys after practice in the spring and say, let me help you map out your day. Because
they let them in the schools down there, Coach. They didn't know the difference between Broward and Dade.
Man. I've done that more than 10 times over the years. And
you can go back to wherever you came from, man.
Yeah, but it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Somebody's pushing them down here. But, you know, going back to your wife, you know, the best thing I could try to tell you is try to keep them involved the best you can. And some things they shouldn't hear, some things they don't want to hear. And, you know, after games, we take our team out. Home games, we take them out for wings and invite families and you know, the kids and Lincoln Riley once told me, he said, that's investing in your program. So if you can invite as many as the moms to see you, not just with a scowl on your face during on the sideline, but as a human being, or what little Johnny told them about you at practice, where coach was really mad that day and he said this and he did that. And, you know, I think that has value, and you gotta watch what you say now. I mean, you saw what happened with Fitzgerald, right, wrong, or indifferent. People record you, they say things, or text messages that you thought was very simple to understand. Somebody misconstrues it to something else, and my coaches say to me all the time, they're like, "You don't like the text because you go one word text. Okay, yes, no, maybe. I'll talk to you later." And anybody can misconstrue the text message. So I learned that a long time ago too. And I think, you know, overall, you're going to make mistakes, live with the mistakes you make, and try not to make them again.
Amen, Coach. Anything else that we haven't covered and you want to say to the coaches that are watching or will watch?
You know, I think at the end of the day, I hope everybody realizes that they are an influencer, and I tell our kids all the time, we're all being evaluated every day, and the evaluation happens in the hallway. It happens how you walk into the locker room, how you warm up, how you talk to an adult or a teacher. You know, keep that in mind. You know, do you want a good evaluation or a bad one? And I'm not perfect. I'm far from it, but I try to live by better evaluations than not. So that's how somebody's always watching.
Somebody's always watching. I love it, Coach. I'm gonna press in here, Coach. Then I'm gonna say bye to you and everything off the air. But thank you, Coach, for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Troy. It's great. A lot of fun.
Thank you, brother.